Welcome to the OG Tie Podcast, where we will dive into everyday life in the trucking industry and share tips on how to make things better in your life. Let's get started. Here is your host, Tyrone Dawson.
This is a story of a man who was wrongly convicted, and his name was James Joseph Richardson. James Joseph Richardson and his wife Ann, they were young when they fell in love. The couple got married in the 1950s. They raised 7 children, and as a working hard couple, the oldest of their children had just begun school. Things was looking bright for the family. But a end twist and a wrongly conviction tore the family apart. The family was very expensive and worth possessions, and the lives of all 9 members would be shattered at the end of their entire world. James and Ann had 7 children. The Richardsons had many children, but some had died in infidelity, and the others had become fatally sick when they were young. But the time of the family was arcaded. There were 7 Richardson children, and they all were young at the time. Betty, Suzanne, and Doreen were all in school, when Vanessa and Diane and Joseph Jr. were still young, and they stayed home. Over 2 days in 1967, all 7 would be wounded. 7 children are experienced, and they were raised especially in a household of low income. In the family of 6, both James and Ann needed to work as fruit pickers during the days to keep food on the table and a roof over their head. The whole family headed to the dinner table, but they also needed child care in these days of need. The parents ensured their young children with their neighbors. They stayed with Bessie, who would take care of the children, feed them warm food, and Ann had to cook the night before, and then kept them safe. The neighbors also made sure the older children would get a warm meal when they had came home from school. On October the 25th, 1967, everything started as a normal day. The 4 older kids set off to school, and Joe and Anna went to work. The neighbor came over to watch the little ones, and at lunchtime, Reese warmed up the food that their mother made the previous day, as always. But the older kids went back to their school and told the teacher that they noticed something strange and they were feeling bad. So the teacher went up to the principal to report this. But when they got home, the parents wasn't there. I'm thinking that I was feeling sick because I knew something was wrong with my parents. The Richardson was immediately called to the hospital, but unfortunately, there was nothing much that could be done for them. After leaving the Orange Grove where they worked, and their parents was rushed to the hospital and found their children sick and dying. People was wondering what was going on with the children. Why were they feeling sick? But at the end of the day, the neighbor and the young children were all dead, and their parents was absolutely disgusted. Young Diane passed away the very next moment. The police was immediately called to figure out what was going on and what and how and who killed all of the Richardson children. Police found the children has been poisoned. After an autopsy, it was determined that all of the 7 children had died from poisoning. The father, James, was the first policeman to bring the investigation, and he realized it was a good idea to search the family home to see if there were any signs of poisons located in the house and have their kids been poisoned by one of the family members. Noticing Wrongfully was found in the first search, but the police chief, Richardson, and Suzanne County Sheriff Frank joined the investigation, where they went back for a second time. It was only after multiple searches that 2 of the pound searchers were found behind the shed of the Richardson property. So they are wondering, who killed these children who belonged to the Richardsons? Was it the neighbors? Was it the mother? Or was it the father? The neighborhood was stung. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know what happened. Everybody was curious about what happened to these children and why did they die immediately all at once. The funeral was a tragic event. Everybody was disturbed, looking at everyone like, who done this to these Richardson children? On the Sunday afternoon of the children's death, a funeral was held. There were 7 coffins laid open in a full room where it was sad, where you can see all the Richardson kids laying there. And the neighbors in the neighborhood, the police department, the mayor, everybody was wondering, what is going on? What happened to these children? And as all the people attended the funeral, the 2 people who were most affected, of course, was the parents of those lost children. James and were soon sobbing, and both parents collapsed at once from the shared grief that they shared. There is no way really consulting these 2 parents who just lost all 7 of their children in 24 hours. What is going on, folks? We don't know what's going on. But the investigation gets deeper. As they looked into the investigation, they realized it had to be an inside job. And as people walked past the house of the 7 children, everyone wanted to get involved. Everyone wanted to know what was going on with this situation. But, guys, who do you think they point the finger at? They pointed it at the father. Come to find out, the father realized his wife was cheating. So instead of taking it out on the wife, he wanted revenge and took it out on the 7 children. The police immediately arrested the father, took him down to the precinct. He was looking at 7 murders, but he claimed his innocence. I did not do this to my children. He spoke several times. I did not do this to my children. Remember, guys, he was taking the children over to the neighbors for a warm, hot meal while the parents was at work. 7, 8, 12-hour days The wife and the husband continued to work and work and work. So how did the father commit these murders? Or did someone else do it? The neighborhood was destroyed. They wanted to know what was going on with this family. Who would do such an act and evil violence? Who would do this to these seven children? But guess what? He got convicted, guys. The father has got convicted for all 7 murders. And they were trying to give him the death penalty. They were trying to give him the death penalty because capital murder is such a horrible thing. Years down the line before they gave him the death penalty, he found something in his case that would set him free. That little thing in his case set him free, and they found out who committed these murders of the 7 children. Someone was on their deathbed before they confessed what really happened. By then, the father has dead over 20-something years. He was in it up and happening down the line. He was going to be executed. But someone came out and confessed it, that they poisoned those children. Guys, we're going to go and continue this on part 2. But for right now, let's take a break. And we will come back with the rest of the story.